Welcome back to Sunday Vibes, one and all. As you can see, sadly, we are still not yet back in the pub. Bloody coronavirus just is being a real little bastard in London at the moment and kicking up an awful stink. We will try and get back in there next week if it's possible. But as you can see, I'm joined by Christopher Hamill and Patrick Van Straten. Hamster, how was your New Year's, mate?
Yes, very good, thank you, mate. A whirlwind tour of Leicester. If anyone saw me stumbling around a little village called Blaby, it's because I'd had an absolute skinful, went home, tried to sleep in the girlfriend's dog bed, and was in, ironically, the doghouse the next day. But apart from that, smooth sailing. I did forget to charge my camera battery, so I'm back on my inferior mic. If I start to sound like Darth Vader 3/4 the way through this, that is why I'm sorry, okay? Honesty up front.
That's shocking. Pato, are you fully recovered now? How was your Christmas? Spent in bed, was it?
No, I was out of bed by Christmas. Also with the baby, I can't really, that's the thing. You've got to like summon your reserves of energy so that you can lift the baby up. But yeah, I'm back now. I'm basically back from COVID, and now I think I'm impervious to damage. I've got like the Super Mario star, so now I can just live forever, I think.
Pat, have you had one of those moments yet? Like super dad moments. You see those montage-esque videos when like guys have kids and like they save them from life-threatening situations,
cars and things.
Just like on the regs. Because I assume that when you have a kid, you are just like you do just become a superhuman. Have you had one of those moments yet? Have you saved her from like a rabid dog or something yet?
I mean, I would argue that if your baby is getting into life-threatening situations, perhaps you are not quite the super dad that you would like to be. No, I haven't saved her from mortal peril yet. To me, the super dad stuff is more like she's miserable, nobody can make her smile, and then I can.
That was cute.
Very smug moment for me, but also, like it's like an addiction. Like once you make her laugh once, then you spend the rest of the day trying to do it. And so like that works out quite well with the baby.
Yeah, I mean, that was one of the most wholesome moments potentially in the whole of Sunday Vibes' history. Let's move on to the football, though, because I'm bored of talking about coronavirus. And, well, I'm not bored of talking about your child, Pat. I'd love to talk about her some more.
That's
but
right,
we need to talk about some football. And we are going to be discussing today players that deserve a second chance. Now, Christopher put this out on Twitter as a sort of poll. Plenty of you were voting for it, including the likes of Gunner, JHH, and MUFC_Benz. Now, I think you can take this in a few different directions, really, can't you? In terms of players that deserve a second chance. There's players that deserve a second chance at a new club. They need a move, and they should get one. And then there's players that deserve a second chance at the club they're at. Players like maybe a Joe Linton, who is going to get a second chance under Eddie Howe, and for the last month or so, Christopher, has proved that he's an extremely canny operator in a different role.
Yeah, he sprung to mind, not least because he's put in a couple of really good performances of late, one being against Manchester United. So before I kick on about Joe Linton, how was it as a Manchester United fan watching him sort of star against your side in what was a really poor game?
I mean, we were absolute gutter, weren't we? We were about as bad as I've seen United this season, to be honest with you. But I don't want to talk about United endlessly. So, yeah, Joe Linton was superb in that game. When he plays in that sort of... It's almost like a box-to-box, It's not really an 8, though, is it? And it's not really a 10. It's somewhere in the middle of the two, you'd suggest. But he can operate in quite tight spaces. Obviously, a really good presser of the ball. And we kind of said this, right, under Bruce, that he was being used incorrectly. When Bruce was using him as this sort of hit and hope number 9 target man, that wasn't how he was being used at his best at Hoffenheim. He was used at his best at Hoffenheim when playing in a front two, when he was operating a little bit deeper and he could get involved in link-up. And I think obviously Eddie Howe, being slightly more analytical and statistical, has probably looked at that Hoffenheim form and thought, how can I bring back a bit of that? How can I add a little bit more steel to my midfield? Maybe I can use Joe Linton in a slightly more reserved role, even more reserved than he was at Hoffenheim, really. And it's paying off to great effect. He's been one of Newcastle's standout players under Howe, even though they've still been pretty poor as a unit.
What he has craved for a while, very clearly, is a specified role as a forward, as an auxiliary, not an auxiliary forward, as an auxiliary attacker, let's say. And Eddie Howe's come in, give him that freedom, give him a little bit more purpose than, like you said, kind of being lumped up front by himself. And it's working to great effect. What I like about this little story is that I've been doing some reading on Joelinton, and he's clearly a guy that works very, very hard behind the scenes. He's employed his own fitness coach. He's been working with external analysts, which doesn't say much about the internal ones at the moment at Newcastle, called Outliers FC from his native Brazil. And he's in, as a result, unbelievable shape. When you look at his physical stats, if you go to FBref, you will see that he is in the top 10% of attackers across Europe's top 5 leagues for things like pressures, tackles, interceptions, blocks, clearances, aerial duels. He's really putting himself about. It's come maybe a detriment to his attacking numbers, but that doesn't matter if he's affecting the game in the middle of the pitch like he did against Manchester United, like you said. He does need to improve in front of goal. Let's have it right. Even if he's going to be an advanced forward or a second striker, he needs to be contributing more than he is now. But he's started to affect games in the lower half of the league, let's say. I mean, Newcastle have had a really tough run of late, haven't they? Leicester, Liverpool, Manchester City, Man United, maybe not so much. But in the games I watched him, where he sort of starred against Norwich and starred against Brentford, he was affecting those games in a big way. And that's what he's going to need to continue to do if he's going to drag Newcastle out of the quagmire they're in. I thought it was a little bit muggy. Patrick Davidson saying to them after the Manchester United game, I didn't realise you were that good. But very heartwarming. More heartwarming than hearing Patrick Van Straten talk about a child at Christmas when Sean Longstaff really stuck up for him.
Yeah, that was great.
Said he was the best player in training. Said he's been disrespected in a big way. And hopefully, he continues this turnaround because it is fun watching him play well.
Yeah, I think Eddie Howe at this stage has probably accepted that Joelinton isn't going to be an out-and-out goal scorer for me. So I'm pretty sure that he'll dip into the market in January to look for another goal scorer to support Callum Wilson's output and use Joelinton in an even more reserved role. I think if you're going to get the best out of Joelinton, there's no point pretending that he is this elite finisher or a poacher or a target man that's going to win headers in the box for you. It's just not going to happen at this stage. So go into the market, get a player that is going to do that for you, and then use Joelinton in a different role. He is absolutely been superb in a midfield role, really, for Newcastle. So I don't think there's going to be any issues with those attacking sort of goal-scoring numbers like XG and expected assists continuing to fall for Newcastle fans, as long as he, in the words of what all Newcastle fans online he really wears his heart on his sleeve now. He really does get stuck into the tackle, which is fine for so long. And if he had a better midfield around him, I'm sure he'd be even more improved. So that January market, I'm sure, will give him maybe even bigger props because, he's been sensational, really, for Newcastle since Eddie Howe took over. Anybody else we want to mention here, Pat? I think maybe, do we want to talk about somebody who could leave the club and get a second chance? Feels like Ousmane Dembele is going to leave Barcelona at this stage, doesn't it? His agent has pretty much said as much, and Barcelona obviously can't come to an agreement over wages there. Do we put this down as maybe the worst transfer in football history, given that it's cost Barcelona about 220 million euros? And, I mean, goal output-wise, other than that sort of 18-19 season, it's been an absolute fucking catastrophe. Pat, what would you do about a problem like Ousmane Dembele?
I wouldn't say it's the worst transfer in football history because I at least think it was intelligent in the first place. They paid too much, but at the same time, he was exactly the kind of player that they should have been targeting. He had great numbers at the time. He had pace out wide. He could play on either side. He's two-footed. He was young, which was something they weren't particularly good at targeting at the time.
True.
So it wasn't stupid from the start. They got really unlucky with injuries, and then they had a sequence of managers who basically didn't really see a place for Dembele in their side. To a certain degree, that's hard to plan for. To a certain degree, it's not the same. I think that buying Griezmann a couple of years too late for his buyout clause, and then having to send him back to Atleti at a knockdown fee because you can't afford to pay his wages. I mean, that is pretty embarrassing. That one to me is one of the most humiliating Barca moves ever, just because at every turn it got worse for them. And I almost want him to fail at Atleti. Well, he has been pretty rubbish at Atleti. I kind of want him to go back so that Barcelona get bankrupted by his wages. But Ousmane Dembele's a really hard one, man, because like at this point, like he's just. I have no idea what a full season of Dembele looks like. When he gets on the field, he still seems highly effective. He's a very good dribbler. He's still pretty creative. Of course, he does have the ability to go inside, outside, because he is so two-footed. But I'm not sure that he's going to... Unless a club like, Liverpool just like takes a flyer on him, I'm not really sure where he's going to go that is going to be a step up from Barcelona. I mean, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm wrong about that. But like... I could easily imagine, Pep doing something weird and being like, yeah, this is my guy and I'm going to make him a superstar. But equally, I could imagine him just ending up at Lazio or something. So I don't really know with Dembele. He's still incredibly young. But I wonder how solvable his fitness problems are. He's definitely going to need to go to a club that has really like cutting edge fitness, because... I don't know, your hope with Dembele, the path to Dembele being a superstar is basically that he goes somewhere and has that thing like Patrice Evra did when he went to Juventus, where he was like, oh, they told me I had like an egg allergy and they put me on a new like diet and everything's better. Because right now it's just hard to see Dembele putting enough games together to be worth it. I mean, I could definitely imagine him. I think probably his best home would be an upwardly mobile kind of Europa League verging on Champions League side where he'll play every time he's fit. They'll give him a really good wage, and
isn't that Barcelona right now, mate? Europa League verging on Champions League.
Yeah, maybe, but he's never been quite valued there, and I have my own theories about why that is. But I think maybe you could imagine him going to a Leverkusen or something, or even back to Dortmund, and that working out a lot better for him under a coach who's going to really appreciate him and put some effort into bringing him along. Whereas at Barcelona, I've never got the sense that there's a great deal of like nurturing of young players. It's always like, unless you come through the Barca academy, it's always a bit like, you're not good enough to play for Barca. Do you have the Barca DNA? Blah, blah, blah. There's absolutely no kind of arm round the shoulder and how can we make you the best player that you can be. And he needs that guy.
I do think, though, with Dembele, is that he's got to set himself more realistic targets. Like these reports have been wanting to earn Kylian Mbappe salaries, and I know that he's on sort of 380 odd K a week at Barcelona. He's amongst the highest earners at the club there. I think it's just totally unrealistic. And his agent kind of filling his head with this idea that you can be as good and you are as good as an Mbappe level figure, I think is just comical at this stage. And if he honestly believes that he can leave Barcelona and take a step up in club and continue to earn what he's earning with that injury record, I really think he's kidding himself. I totally agree with these sort of shouts like a Leverkusen, like an upwardly mobile sort of Europa League side. But to do that, he's going to have to halve more than halve his wage, probably.
Yeah.
If he's on 380k a week, they're not going to pay him 200k a week.
But it is difficult, though. It is difficult, though. Because when he was like 20, he was better than a lot of the young players we talk about. He was better than Greenwood. He was better than Saka at 20. Like, he was absolutely unreal. He was really good. I wouldn't say he was quite Sancho level, but he wasn't far off. So, I mean, the idea that he could have turned into one of the very best players in the world is not that far out there. And I do feel for him because like he did have all the talent in the world, and he'd made exactly the right decisions. Coming through Rennes are great at bringing through young wide players, and then going to Dortmund at just the right time. So to me, if I were him, I would be looking for total stability, a club that really relies on creative wide players and that has that manager like a Nagelsmann, like a Marco Rose, even like an Arteta whose chief pedigree really has been working on young wide players really. Somebody
maybe
like
that is Klopp then. Maybe that is Klopp.
Yeah, maybe.
Who has a fantastic record with wide talent. And to be honest with you, Liverpool do have a cutting-edge medical department, despite the fact they have had some significant injuries over the past sort of year or so.
The promising thing is that at Rennes and at Dortmund, like he put up, whether that was starts and appearances off the bench, sort of 30 appearances a season, and these hamstring issues only became recurrent and a big issue when he went to Barcelona. And So you are hoping that can be managed in a better fashion than Barcelona are managing it right now. I mean, the numbers are really scary, aren't they? £3.5 million per La Liga start, £6 million per La Liga goal involvement, more hamstring injuries this season. More hamstring injuries at Barcelona than appearances he's made this season. He is not in a strong negotiating position, but I think, I want to play devil's advocate here, I think him and his agent did acknowledge that slightly. They were going to agree a longer term deal, a 5-year deal on lower wages. And then Barcelona went and signed Ferran Torres for £55 million or euros, whatever that was. And it was when he was about to sign the dotted line. And I think there was a little bit of, I think they were a little bit pissed off his camp because they'd probably come down a sizable amount. I don't know the exact amount. And then Barcelona went and secured that 1.5 to 2 billion pound loan from, was it Goldman Sachs? One of the big American banks, wasn't it? And all of a sudden they're back spending money again, and he's taking a hit. So a little bit of sympathy there. Probably not the most deftly handled by Barcelona on that front, but I think I'm going to have a lot of fun speculating where he goes this summer. A lot of fun. And he's been linked with Newcastle, obviously, because they would probably be prepared to pay megastar wages, wouldn't they, for him? And it is
that would be a disaster
in the Championship.
Yeah, and Tottenham and Liverpool. Liverpool feels like a really good move to me. If they can sell, some of their fringe players, if Minamino goes, if Origi goes, if some wages become free, because we know they're quite frugal, don't we, FSG? And a team like Liverpool would still have to pay Dembele 150 grand a week to come and play, and to justify that, he's probably still got to play 20 to 25 games in all competitions, hasn't he? So I don't know. Are we agreeing that Liverpool would be a good destination? That's what @MilesSNZ suggested, by the way, in the comments. He said he'd be a good rotation option for Liverpool.
I definitely think so. I think Sadio Mane at this stage would benefit from more consistent pressure for his position. I think you've seen it at a number of clubs when a player comes in and has a more defined rival for that role, he ends up going up a level. And I think Sadio Mane, over the last sort of 10 games, has underwhelmed comparatively to what we expect Sadio Mane to be able to produce. I think it is 1 goal in his last 10, right? I don't think he scored in his last 9 at all. So for me, there is an element of that sort of Sadio Mane role being to a level untouchable. Like, I know that Jota has been an absolute sensation for Liverpool, but that's kind of been more to Firmino's detriment. I wonder if you had somebody like a Jota for the Sadio Mane role, whether or not Sadio Mane would either go up another level and get back to his best, which I think is very achievable, and I think it is just a minor slump for him, or whether he would go, I'm not keen for that, and Dembele would be able to push up to that level. I think that would be an interesting little battle between Ousmane Dembele and Sadio Mane. I do wonder whether Ousmane Dembele will do the work off the ball that Jurgen Klopp would demand from a winger. Obviously, hasn't really had to do that at Barcelona. But
he played under Tuchel.
Yeah, maybe that is something Jurgen Klopp backs himself to be able to coach.
Exactly,
and he played under Tuchel.
Is he capable?
Like, I mean, it's not like it's totally alien to him.
Yeah.
But I mean, I don't know. Like, I think that'd be interesting, though. I think there's only, I mean, Mane is obviously better than 1 goal in 10, but like, there's only so long he's going to be Sadio Mane, right? Like, he's 29 now. Like, the idea of like, oh, will he get back to his best? Like, his best is going to change with each passing season, and potentially a way to get value out of Mane as he ages might be to play him more up front. When he was young, he always struck me as like very similar to Jamie Vardy. Like they're quite similar kinds of players in some way. And I think you could potentially play him there and rest some other guys, and play Dembele out wide. But just having a guy who can cover you in both positions. Liverpool are a perfect situation in that Dembele wouldn't need to come in and be a superstar. He could come in and be a rotation guy while he regains his fitness, learns the system, gets his work rate up. And then when Mane is kind of 31, Dembele could be ready to take that starting role. Or if not, you get rid of him and you haven't paid anything for him, so it's fine.
I've got a comment here from @Nishche saying that Barcelona have been good to him and he's been a snake. I don't know how true that is. Have Barcelona been good to him?
Cool, great comment.
Yeah,
I mean,
so,
I think a snake
Barcelona
is
fans
pretty
would
harsh.
feel betrayed if he left.
Yeah, I think that what Nish is saying there is obviously there have been some sort of disciplinary issues behind the scenes at times, haven't they, for Ousmane Dembele turning up late for training and stuff at times. Obviously, he's been injured so consistently. But at the end of the day, players' careers are extremely short. They've got to do exactly what is best for them. And I do believe that Dembele's best move in this situation is to get out of Barcelona. Let Xavi do what he wants to do with that young bunch of Spaniards he's trying to build, and bring in Morata or whoever he wants to bring in, and give himself a fresh start at a brand new fitness facility, I think. And that's probably something he's going to do. It's going to be extremely interesting to see where he goes then. Another player that we should say could get a second chance. We've spoken about a player staying at his club. We've spoken about a player leaving on a permanent. A player leaving on loan that could get a second chance. I do want to highlight Dele Alli here, because we've seen David Ornstein reporting that he is going to be loaned out. About bloody time. He should have been loaned out last January. We saw the success Jesse Lingard had on loan and how he worked his way into that Euros setup. There's no reason in my head Dele Alli cannot have a similar level impact at a club if he's loaned away and played in the right role. I know that he has struggled so consistently over the last year. His numbers are off a cliff. But I still believe there is a really good footballer in there somewhere if you can find a role as a second striker in a decently coached side. Like, I still think he would be really interesting at a Brighton playing off Neil Maupay. Under a really well-coached Graham Potter side.
That'd be a fucking sensational signing for Brighton, mate.
Yeah, of course, but I think that's the level Dele Alli's got to realistically aim for. Like,
Well, yeah,
I'm seeing him being linked with moves to like Newcastle. I don't think Brighton's an impossible task, is it? I know that his wages is probably going to be pretty heavy, but surely Tottenham are going to be willing to subsidise them to some degree in order to get a good loan move for him, rather than just getting a body out of the club, especially in COVID times where squads are going to be extremely thin and it's going to come down to 13 or 14 fit players at times. I would rather see Dele Alli progressing and refining himself at Brighton than at Newcastle, who are paying 20% more wages, and he's like struggling every single week in a relegation dogfight. Like, I can't remember what show I was talking about this on, but I think Neil Maupay is actually having an underrated season this year. I think it's 7 goals and 13 starts. I know that people are like, you need a finisher in the box at Brighton, you need a finisher in the box. I actually think playing somebody up alongside Maupay will bring out even better things from him. And I think those two kind of working in conjunction could be a really interesting little idea for Graham Potter. But I don't think it's going to happen. It'll end up at Newcastle, sadly.
Well, I think, you look at someone like Conor Gallagher, and actually like the way he plays is extremely similar to kind of a good Dele Alli. Like, Conor Gallagher is not actually a passing hub at all for Crystal Palace. Like, he's doing loads of his work off the ball, making runs into the final third, doing a load of defending. I think that if you can find a role like that that really is fitted to Ali's strengths, then there's still going to be something in there, because he is going to work super hard. Recently, like, the performance that got everyone saying, oh, maybe there's still a player in there, was the Liverpool one. And that was when he was able to close people down and then burst forward into space in a way that we haven't seen from him for ages. I mean, I think Brighton, obviously I'd love to see him go to Brighton. That would be sick. Because I feel like Brighton always have like a few good players and then like a load of, like lollipop sticks and plasters like over the rest of it. Like, I like Adam Lallana, but the fact that Adam Lallana is still a starter for them at 33 is a little bit troubling. Is he 33? Might be older. But I think Everton would also be an interesting one, Like, Everton, there's no link there between midfield and attack. Absolutely none at all. And as soon as one of Richarlison or Dominic Calvert-Lewin is out injured, they are always in so much trouble, because basically everyone knows what the threat is. When you play Everton, you know where the threat is. Like, it's not necessarily the case that you can deal with the threat, but you know who it is. Because unless, Demarai Gray bangs one in from 25 yards, which he's done a couple of times this season, but he's not going to do consistently, it's extremely hard to see who, in addition to those front two, is really going to cause you problems. And if Dele Alli were there, it would be him. I can imagine him playing with either Richarlison or Calvert-Lewin, or behind the pair of them. And like those guys, he's an enormous physical presence. He's obviously much more of a passer, can do much more ball progression. He's more unpredictable in his movement. I think that would be a really interesting signing. And, like a manager like Benitez is intelligent and structured, and I think that's what Ali needs. He needs structure and discipline at this time of his career so he can get it back on track.
Just to go back to that Liverpool game that you mentioned, obviously Spurs played sort of a 5-3-2 then, didn't they? And that's when he played really well, when he was in that midfield three, and they were really narrow, really aggressive in the centre of the park. And then he started, and then another game, I don't know if it's a subsequent game against Southampton, when they went back to Conte's sort of preferred 3-4-3, and he was on the right hand side and he got dragged off after 60 minutes. And that's what made me think, is he back, or does Conte view him as a sort of specialised player? You know, it'll bring him in for various big games when he wants to pack the midfield, but other than that, Lucas Moura is probably his preferred option in that wide position, or even Steven Bergwijn if he can pick up some form when they go back to that 3-4-3. So I do think, yes, seek the loan, probably don't persist with Spurs, because I can't see him getting sort of any more than 5 starts come the end of the season. Clearly, when he is on the park, he's trying very, very hard. Like you said, his physical stats this season are up there. Like 27 pressures per 90 is nuts. That is just absolutely bonkers. And I do think a team like Everton, Leicester, West Ham, that Wolves maybe, that would be more palatable for him than to go to Brighton, who are perhaps a step down. I agree with you in the sense, Joe, that he would be a good fit there. And Graham Potter is a coach who is going to invest time in him, nurture him, get him back to his best. But I'm wondering if like Leicester play a 4-3-1-2 now, but Maddison obviously occupies that 10 position. Wolves have no central midfielders. Probably a bit of a similar problem to Everton at the moment, in that they're very poor at linking midfield to attack, aren't they? Because Neves, Moutinho are quite deep. If Traore's not running up and down the pitch, or I don't know, Podence, they find ball progression quite difficult. So yeah, maybe a club like that as well. But there's definitely we're just waiting for a new lease of life from him, aren't we? 25 years old, never been gas, not reliant on his pace. Someone's got to be able to get the best out of him in the next 18 months to 2 years.
Yeah, and I'm sure they will. I also like that shout of Wolves. He could also operate in sort of one of that front three area over maybe a Trinquao, or over maybe a Hwang a little bit higher up the pitch. I think that's not a bad shout either. There are a few options in the middle of the table that I think would suit Dele Alli. Whether or not it happens remains to be seen. Whether or not he ends up at Newcastle remains to be seen, to be honest with you. Is there any other shouts people want to give here before we move on to do some quick fire questions?
If you've got one, then that's all right. But
no, go on, mate. Go for it. I haven't got any.
I was going to say Kelechi Iheanacho, because he's got under 600 minutes for Leicester this season.
Yeah,
I think there are 14 players in the squad with more minutes than him. But in that time, he's got 6 goals and assists in the Premier League, and was obviously absolutely sensational in that Man City game. I mean, that did boost his stats. But I mean, it's a game against Man City. If that's the one that's your flat track bully game, then that says something good about you. I mean, he's never quite, even when he was scoring consistently for them, you always felt like Rodgers was waiting for his form to dip so he could drop him. He's
never taken him seriously, has he?
Exactly. And he's such a talented player. He's a really interesting kind of striker. Actually, I saw this the other day. There was a debate among Arsenal fans because people were like, Arsenal's next forward needs to be like a more evolved version of Lacazette. And somebody said, well, isn't that Iheanacho? And everyone went ballistic. But I was like, stylistically, it kind of is. He is.
Interesting.
He's not the fastest, but he's super creative. He's a really nice technical player. He's also a goal threat. The power he can generate with no backlift in the box is really remarkable. And I just think if you could get him in a 2-striker system, or you could get him in a system where you expect the wide forwards to do quite a lot of your running and goal scoring, I really think that he could be something special. And he's still only 25. There is a great career there to be had for Kelechi Iheanacho, and it really infuriates me to see him score and score and score, and then just get dropped, basically as quickly as possible. Despite the fact that Leicester have got worse every season under Rodgers, he doesn't seem to have noticed that Iheanacho was one of the guys who kept them competitive. So I don't know. Again, with him, he just feels like one of those guys who will end up going to Italy, where he could play in a 2-striker system or something. But right now, I look at I mean, I know he's not going to go there, but you look at a team like Palace, and you think, yeah, I would love to see Iheanacho get a proper run, get a starting role in a decent side with a decent kind of style of play, and just see what he can really do if he were to get 30 starts in a season.
Yeah, they've got Elise and Eze coming back, haven't they?
Yeah.
So imagine if they got Iheanacho as well, it'd be an embarrassment of riches.
Yeah.
But I agree, mate. I went to see Leicester against Liverpool at the King Power on Boxing Day, was it? And he actually got hauled off pretty early into the second half, and I was really dismayed about it because I thought he was playing pretty well, and he's got, I think, an underrated ability just to drop back into his own third and start to build play again. And he was doing that well with Dewsbury Hall. I think he was offering more than Maddison in that capacity as well. And it is a shame for him that Patson Dak has come in. Patson Dak has obviously hit the ground running and is clearly seen as a more out-and-out number 9 and is being heavily rotated with Vardy. And this shift to a 4-3-1-2 means that there's no space for Iheanacho now behind the centre forward because Maddison's occupying that space, but he was great at doing that as well last season. Like wherever he's played, I think he's generally done a great job. I mean, even in other competitions where he's been given more of a chance, the League Cup, I remember him scoring. He scored a goal in the League Cup. I think he's got 3 assists in the Europa League. He's putting up goal contributions everywhere. And yeah, he needs to be taken seriously by someone. That even might be a good shout for Brighton. You know, if him and Morpay.
That'd be really fun. That'd be really fun because when you look at what Potter's got out of guys like Danny Welbeck at his age, I would really love to see that because I think there is a feel good story to be had there. I mean, that said, Daka hasn't actually played in the Premier League. Like he's played like 270 minutes or something in the Premier League. But clearly, it feels like Rodgers has high hopes for Daka. And Iheanacho
he's the second number 9, right? Iheanacho is not. Yeah,
definitely.
Not
but those two guys could play together. That's the other thing. You look at them and you're like, play Daka off the left, play Iheanacho through the middle, and he'll drop deep and be that passing hub in a kind of Firmino, Lacazette style way. I could see that happening, but it's just. I don't know. I look at him and I think maybe his best football is going to end up being played for Nigeria, where he's got interesting players around him, like Awaniwi or Dennis or whoever it might be, who he can facilitate. Or you can.
Interesting to see Nigeria have let Dennis go, isn't it? Let him go back to Watford, and he's not going to go to the AFCON. I think that's a really interesting move. That's a huge W for Watford.
I mean, they do have a Osimhen, who's amazing.
He'd have been a great shout for this last season, wouldn't he? Players who are worth giving a second chance because he was not in a good spate of form for club or country. No. Emmanuel Dennis has been a sensation this season.
Yeah, I also think, in Italy there's a fair few names. Barcelona have got a fair few names. I think like Kulusevski in 2022 needs a move away from Allegri's Juve. Just obviously so out of favour there. He's had like little injury problems. He's a player I would really like to see in the Premier League. Why does every Italian player at a smaller Italian club that produces really good numbers for a season or so end up going to Juventus? It's just so annoying. If Vlahovic goes to Juventus, it's gonna be so sad to see. Honestly, it really will. Just so boring.
I don't care, man.
Don't want it to happen at all. I think there's quite a few interesting shouts there. If you've got any shouts for players that deserve a second chance next season or next year, let us know in the comments below. Let's do a quick fire question then. Stuart says, one realistic signing for each of your clubs in January. Christopher, anybody at Celtic?
Apparently just signed another Japanese guy called Maeda for 1.7 mil.
You're loving the J-League.
A loan with an option to buy for 1.7 mil. Yeah, there's 3 players coming over. I don't know if this has ever happened in another league where a league-winning manager has gone to another league and taken what will hopefully be four of that country's players with him. Hopefully Celtic just become huge in Japan. I've been quite impressed with our January business. It feels like we're targeting the right sort of people. Obviously brought in 12 people in the summer, which was pretty unprecedented and highlighted Celtic's awful sort of future planning. Any left back and right back cover is absolutely essential for Celtic. But I'm going to try and do a video on my own channel. I've not really thought about those targets massively in depth at the moment. It's annoying that I I suggested Ian Martson, who went on loan to Coventry this season from Chelsea, has been great at Coventry and looks like he might be heading back to Chelsea because of Ben Chilwell's injury. His value is I think he's going to go through the roof in the next 18 months. But yeah, come back to me on that in a couple of weeks.
Pat, realistic one for Arsenal?
Probably a central midfielder. I think any forward signing is probably going to have to wait till the summer. Been linked with Bruno Gimerenche again from Lyon, who would be great. I don't know if you get him in January, and he's going to cost between 30 and 40 mil, but he is an absolutely amazing player. Like, I think he would be incredible for Arsenal next to Partey, but I don't think you get him in January. I don't think Arsenal get him in January. So, I don't know who's a gettable central midfielder with defensive presence and the ability to dribble a little bit. I don't know. I mean, like, if United don't end up getting in Haidara, maybe he's an interesting candidate. Or I know, Florian Grillitsch, his contract is up in the summer, so maybe him.
Yeah. Man United don't need no signings in January. They need to get rid of players. Obviously, they need a DM, but that's just not going to happen in January. Getting a DM of like required level. United need to sort out contractual situations and get rid of some of the players that just don't play and are on about 300k a week. So I think more realistic for United is we'll see like 4 exits from the club. Like Anthony Martial, that situation just needs to be resolved. And like this idea of United should subsidise 200 grand a week of his wage so that he can go to Sevilla and enjoy himself is an absolute wind-up to me. Honestly, it is, given that United are in the middle of a COVID situation, a battle for top 4. If COVID hits and we have to use Martial, I'd rather he was at the club as an option than us paying for him to have a jolly in Spain. So
mate, Sevilla's bid was an absolute piss take, wasn't it? Like, no option to buy, no obligation to buy half his wages for the next 6 months. Like, why would United stand to benefit nothing from letting him go, like you said? So anyone that's like, just get rid of him, what are you talking about?
Yeah, just don't agree with it. I suppose if we were talking a realistic signing, I don't know, maybe Haidara, maybe Zakaria, who's out of contract in the summer, try and move for him a little bit earlier if United really want a DM. But I don't think that's going to happen. Let's finish with a personal question then. Which one of these 3 do we want to do? Obviously, we've had loads sent in by Discord this week.
I don't know,
Marco,
choose one.
Let's do Marco's because it is relevant to today, isn't it? It is coming out. Well, we're shooting this on New Year's Eve, and this will be going out on the 2nd of January, right? So Marco says, "What are your New Year's resolutions?"
Well, I need to get back in shape. I was in pretty good shape when my baby was born, and now I'm like a sack of potatoes. So that'd be kind of good.
Go on then, Thomas. What do you say?
I think to finish off decorating the last 2 rooms of my flat because it's just like such a slog decorating, mate. Yeah,
decorate 2 rooms, mate. I think you can aim higher.
No, I don't know whether you can.
That's quite a big job.
Honestly, it's a ball ache decorating 2 rooms.
It is.
It's got to like knock down a wall to put cupboards in and all sorts. It's just a stress, mate. That's just a stress I don't need. And I was quoted £1,600 to put a cupboard in under the stairs. London carpenters, you're taking the piss. If there's any London carpenters watching this, please get in touch with me because I cannot be quoted £1,600 to put 2 panels of MDF under some stairs.
Yeah, I mean, it is absolutely outrageous.
Are you getting any more handy doing this stuff? Like, you're not knocking down the wall yourself, are you?
I'm going to have to if it's going to cost me £1,600. Absolute wind up, honestly. I'm getting to the stage I'm going to put this cupboard in under the stairs myself. It's stressing me out.
I mean, hopefully just shoot some more ambitious content. I don't know about you boys, but just shooting videos in the house it wasn't wearing that thin for the first 18 months, but now I feel like it is. I'm getting the itch.
Welcome to Omicron.
To get out there, yes. Which probably isn't going to happen now, is it? Yeah, shit.
Yeah, c'est la vida. All right, that's it for another episode of Sunday Vibes today. If you want to get your question answered next week, put it in the comments below. Send it to Christopher on Twitter during the week or get involved on Discord. We put the link in the description, Hamill, for Discord people to send questions in on there as well.
Absolutely, yeah. Shout out to the Discord this week. Supplied all the quickfire and personal questions. Props.
There we go. Sensational news. Pato, anything you want to plug? Probably not.
I don't think so, man.
All right, easy work then. Thanks very much for watching, everybody. We'll see you later. Bye.